Have you ever felt a weird vibe from a friend? Like deep down, she might actually not wish the best for you, or maybe she's secretly jealous of you, and every time you share a win, she seems bothered, annoyed, or just not that happy for you. Or maybe things just don't feel the same anymore. Hanging out feels different, like you're not really aligned anymore. If any of this sounds familiar, stick around. I often get asked how to grow spiritually, how to manifest a new life, how to become more confident, and I'll tell you that it's absolutely valid to want to understand these things and to desire inner growth, but often we forget just how essential the environment around us is, because that's exactly where the fertile ground for any kind of growth begins. Hi, I'm Selma, and today I want to talk to you about a topic that, in my opinion, doesn't get discussed enough, which is the friendships that hold you back. Those relationships that seem normal, affectionate, but in reality make you feel more insecure, smaller, and less like yourself. The connections that, instead of supporting you, slowly drain you. In this video, we're going to look at how to recognize the more subtle signs that someone isn't truly happy for you, why it's so hard to walk away even when we feel something is not right, and how to create an environment that's truly fertile for your personal and spiritual growth. If you see yourself even a little bit in these situations, know that you are not alone, and there are concrete ways to change your reality, starting with the people you choose to keep close. Human beings are biologically wired for connection. From the earliest stages of evolution, our survival depended on belonging to a tribe. Loneliness was once a death sentence. Even now, in a hyper-connected digital world, we crave emotional closeness, support, and the simple knowing that someone has our back. But not all connections are healthy, and not all friendships are safe spaces. In our teenage years and early adulthood, we often make friends based on proximity. Who's in our class, our neighborhood, our workplace. We bond over shared environments or surface level interests, and that's natural. But as we grow, something shifts. Our values become clearer, our goals evolve, and eventually we start to notice that not every friendship is aligned with who we are becoming. The people around us don't just reflect us, they shape us. Our thoughts, habits, beliefs, and even our self-worth are often filtered through the mirror of the people we spend time with. If you're constantly surrounded by negative, insecure, or judgmental people, it's almost impossible not to absorb some of that energy. Conversely, being surrounded by ambitious, kind, and emotionally intelligent people can inspire us to rise. As Jim Rohn famously said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is not just a motivational quote, it's a psychological truth. Your friends influence your level of discipline, your relationship standards, your mood, even your language. Their worldview creeps into yours, often unconsciously. But the thing is, we don't always notice when a friendship becomes toxic. Sometimes we mistake history for harmony. We assume that someone who's been around for years must be good for us because they were once there during hard times, or because we shared laughs in the past. But the past is not a contract. People change and you change. What once was safe can now become subtly harmful. This is why understanding the foundational importance of friendships is the first step towards self-respect. You're not being harsh or disloyal by evaluating who you let into your life. You're being conscious and you're taking responsibility for your mental environment. So, what are the signs of a toxic friend? First things first is boundary violations and disrespect. A toxic friend never truly respects your boundaries. You can tell them clearly that something bothers you, that you'd rather not talk about it, that you can't be there right now, and they will just pretend they didn't hear it. When you say no, for them, it's not a real answer. It's just a temporary obstacle to get around. You're tired? Doesn't matter. They call you anyway and get offended if you don't pick up. you need space, they will make you feel guilty for abandoning them. You told them a certain joke hurts you, they will repeat it in front of others like it's just harmless fun. In these dynamics, the problem is not so much the single episode, but the message underneath. What you feel matters less than what they want. Your time, your energy, your emotions are all up for grabs. And if you dare to protect your boundaries, you'll be accused of being selfish, cold, or ungrateful. Over time, this behavior wears down trust and mutual respect. You get used to tolerating small invasions, then bigger ones. You start to believe it's normal that friendship means always having to give in. But it's not normal. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect. If someone can't accept your no without turning it into a problem, they're not really interested in knowing you. They just want you to always be available no matter how you feel. For example, my mom had a friend who would call her constantly, even multiple times a day, just to tell her every little detail about her life. My mom would tell her very clearly, "Look, I don't have time right now. We'll talk later." But it didn't matter. She would call back right after, send messages, keep insisting as if it were an emergency, even when it wasn't. And at the end, my mom started feeling guilty if she didn't answer right away, as if she were obligated to always be available. This is a typical boundary violation. You state a clear limit and the other person systematically ignores it because their needs always come before yours. A toxic friend never misses a chance to criticize or belittle what you do. It doesn't matter what the topic is, your projects, your ideas, your appearance, even the people you care about end up being targets. At first, it might seem like they're just being honest or that they have a critical personality. But over time, you start to realize that there is almost never any real encouragement, only judgment. If you share a success, they immediately downplay it. If you talk about a dream or a goal, they say it's naive, that you won't make it, that you should be realistic. If you try to change something about yourself, they point out how it won't make any difference anyway. This attitude doesn't always come from conscious malice. Often these people are insecure themselves and project their own sense of failure onto others. But the result is the same. They drain you. They make you insecure. Every conversation becomes a little battle where you have to justify yourself, defend what you're doing, and protect your excitement as if it were something fragile. And over time, even the most confident person starts to question everything. A healthy friendship makes you feel supported. Okay? That doesn't mean someone always agrees with you, but there is a huge difference between someone who offers constructive feedback and someone who always finds a reason to tear you down. Constant criticism is not honesty. It's a way to keep you insecure because a person who doubts themselves is easier to control and easier to keep on their level. If you walk away from interactions feeling smaller, more insecure, or exhausted, you should really ask yourself if this is a friendship or just a toxic pattern that's been repeating for far too long. Another thing is jealousy when you succeed. A very common sign of a toxic friendship is the jealousy that comes out whenever something goes well for you. They might not say it directly, but you can see it in their eyes, in the way they go quiet, or how their energy shifts when you share good news. If you talk about an achievement, they act indifferent. Sometimes they immediately downplay it, like, yeah, but it's not really that big of a deal. If you're excited, they change the subject. If you're shining, they bring up something negative about you just to pull you back down a little. This reaction often comes from a sense of competition they don't want to admit. Instead of feeling inspired by your progress or just genuinely happy for you, they feel threatened. Your success shows them everything they haven't dared to do, everything they've avoided facing in themselves. And over time, this attitude wears you down. You start to hold back. You wonder if it's safe to share what makes you happy. You almost feel guilty for having good things happen to you, as if you need to tone it all down to protect their feelings. Someone who truly cares about you feels joy when you grow. They don't make you feel wrong for your progress. They don't get irritated when you accomplish something meaningful. And they don't need need to undermine you to feel better about themselves. If you notice that every time you win, it becomes an issue, that's a clear sign this person is not able to celebrate you because they're stuck in their own frustration. And that's not something you have to carry on your shoulders. Another typical sign of a toxic friendship is when you're always the one doing the work. You're the one who sends the messages, suggests plans, checks in to see how they're doing. You remember important dates, you offer support, you're the one who cares about keeping the connection alive. If you stop texting, there's silence. If you don't suggest anything, nothing happens. You start to realize that if it weren't for you making the effort, the relationship would simply fade away. You might make excuses for them, like maybe it's just a busy period, maybe they have a lot going on, and sure, that happens to everyone sometimes. But when this becomes a constant pattern, it's not just a phase. It's a clear sign that this person is not interested in investing as much as you are. The problem with these dynamics is that they always leave you feeling like you're the one asking for too much, when in reality, you're simply asking for basic reciprocity. A healthy friendship is built on a natural exchange. Both people want to be there, both find time, both feel like it's something worth nurturing. When you're the only one holding it all together, it's not a connection. It's more like an emotional customer service role. You're wasting energy chasing someone who isn't willing to take even one step toward you. One of the most overlooked signs is how you feel after spending time together. A healthy friend leaves you feeling lighter, supported, or at least calm. A toxic friend leaves you exhausted. You go home feeling tense, anxious, or completely drained, like they've absorbed all your energy and left you with nothing. If this happens almost every time, it's a clear sign that the relationship doesn't nourish you. Another serious red flag is when you can't trust them. Like deep down, you know that you can't trust them. They gossip about you, they share your secrets, or switch personalities depending on who's around. Sometimes they act warm in private and distant or judgmental in public, as if they have to prove something to others. Healthy friendships feel consistent and safe. If you have to wonder whether they will use your vulnerability against you, like, girl, come on. Some friends are always in crisis. Every conversation is about how someone wronged them, how everything is unfair, how they're constantly struggling, and they expect you to be their emotional rescue team. They make you feel guilty if you can't drop everything to help, and they never take real responsibility for their choices. Any attempt to set limits or suggest solutions usually ends in them feeling attacked or misunderstood. Another important sign is isolation tactics. Toxic friends often try to cut you off from other relationships, sometimes in subtle ways. They might criticize the people you spend time with or plant doubts about your other friendships. They throw little comments to make you feel guilty for wanting space or for enjoying someone else's company. And eventually you start to believe they're the only one who really understands you. This keeps you dependent and afraid to build new connections, so you tolerate behaviors you wouldn't accept from anyone else. So there are many other signs of a toxic friend, but in the end they all come down to the same core issues, which are insecurity, envy, or the need to control and compete. It's a strange thing how clearly we can feel that a friendship is misaligned, yet how hard it is to walk away. There's often no dramatic betrayal, no obvious abuse, just a slow erosion, subtle disrespect, quiet resentment, and still we say. This is the first trap. The inability to leave something that quietly hurts simply because we've grown used to it. So why do we keep people in our lives who don't deserve that space? The first reason is that it's convenient. Most people don't stay in mediocre relationships because it's hard to let them go. They stay because it's easier, because it's simpler to tell yourself, at least there's someone, rather than admit you have so little self-esteem that you're willing to accept crumbs just to avoid facing emptiness. You'd rather have someone who treats you with indifference than spend an hour in silence asking yourself who the hell you've become and how you ended up here. Because in the end, a fake friendship that makes you feel socially acceptable seems better than a period of solitude that forces you to look straight at all the parts of yourself you keep trying to ignore. Company, even the most toxic kind, is the perfect anesthetic. It distracts you from the fact that you've forgotten what it feels like to be okay on your own. You don't even ask yourself anymore if these people respect you or value you. It's enough that they reply to your messages. It's enough that you can tell others you're not alone, even though deep down, you're lonelier than anyone. And you know perfectly well there's nothing healthy about telling yourself that sweet story about you've known each other for so long, when the truth is you're just holding hands because you're both scared to grow. You're stuck in this unspoken deal, like, I won't judge your insecurities if you don't make me face mine. And so the months, years, decades pass, hanging out with people who don't support you, don't inspire you, don't challenge you to be better, simply because the alternative would be facing a silence that terrifies you. You know what? That fear you call solitude is actually freedom. It's the chance to slam the door in the face of whoever merely tolerates you and finally respect yourself enough not to accept less than what you deserve. If you're not ready, that's fine. But don't tell yourself the little story that it's not the right time or maybe things will change. You're simply not willing to give up a convenient illusion. But you will never build anything real on top of an illusion. You can only keep pretending it's enough. Another reason is the scarcity mindset. In other words, you're convinced that outside of that little group, there's nothing better. You think no one will ever understand you like they do, even though by now you don't even really understand each other anymore. That no one will ever care about you with the same intensity, even if that intensity has turned into habit or passive aggressiveness. It's that thought telling you, if I close this door, I'll be left out of everything. I will never find anyone who really gets me. So you hold on to people who don't make you feel good anymore just because the idea of starting over from scratch terrifies you. You don't feel like putting yourself out there again, explaining your story all over to new people, figuring out whether someone else will be able to understand you. You tell yourself it's too late, or everyone out there is superficial, or we're older now, it's different. You convince yourself it's about loyalty, a special bond, all the years you've shared, but most of the time it's just fear of being without a script. Because in that group, you know exactly how to move, even if you feel judged. You know everyone's roles by heart, even if they weigh you down. You already know what to expect. And in a way, it comforts you to believe that no one else could ever replace them. So you don't have to take the step to look for something healthier. The point is that this way of thinking is not realistic. It's just an easy excuse to stay stuck, because there are people out there who would understand you much better than the ones you hang out with now. But you have to have the courage to make room, to risk being alone for a while before you meet them, to face the emptiness instead of telling yourself over and over that no alternative exists. As long as you're convinced that a little is better than nothing, you will always have very little. Another reason is that you like having someone to complain with. Some relationships only survive thanks to shared victimhood. You build your connection on conversations where you talk badly about everyone else, pity yourselves, and tell each other you're different from everyone and no one understands you. Sometimes you don't even realize it, but these dynamics give you a kind of toxic comfort, because as long as you talk about other people's problems, you don't have to look at your own. As long as you're complaining to someone who always agrees with you, you can feel fine about staying exactly where you are now without actually doing anything to change. The thing is, if you stopped hanging out with that person, you would realize how much of your day is taken up by this little show. You would discover that you actually don't have much to say to each other if you take away away the parts where you play the victims together. That maybe without all the complaining, there's nothing holding you together anymore. And that awareness is scary because it means that part of you would rather stay dissatisfied, so you always have something to talk about. So you always have an excuse not to question yourself. This is not a friendship. It's like a secret club where you keep telling each other that everything sucks and nothing will ever change. And if you even try to improve, to change your perspective, to take a step forward, the other person feels betrayed, like you're abandoning them in their misery. But growing means accepting that not everyone will want to come with you. And sometimes stopping the complaining also means changing who you spend time with. The last reason, the most important of all, the one that ties everything else together, is that you simply don't love yourself enough. You can tell yourself any story you want, that you're a patient person, that you're empathetic, that no one is perfect, that everyone has flaws. You can keep repeating that you're just giving people chances, that you prefer to see the good in others. But the truth is, if you keep spending time with people who disrespect you, who give you nothing healthy, it's because deep down you hate yourself. If you had even a little respect for yourself, certain relationships simply would not exist. You would not feel obligated to stay just so you don't look mean. You would not be afraid of seeming selfish just because you start setting boundaries. You would not sit there trading your dignity for the company of anyone who remembers you exist. The problem isn't just a lack of courage, it's that you don't see your own worth. If you really knew who you are, you wouldn't settle for a random message here and there, a forced laugh, and the illusion of being included. If you truly knew what it means to love yourself, you wouldn't agree to share your time, energy, and mental space with people who see you as a filler. You wouldn't waste hours of your life letting yourself be belittled by those who feel superior to you or by those who need to mock you to feel less frustrated. But you stay, and not because you don't see what's happening, not because you're naive. You stay because deep down, you still believe this is all you're entitled to, because you've gotten used to thinking that affection is something you have to beg for, that having company is a prize you must earn, that other people's approval is essential to feel like you matter. So you end up justifying everything: the silent judgment, the half-hearted compliments, the nasty little jokes, the support that never shows up. You tell yourself it's normal. You fill your mouth with words like loyalty and shared history, when the truth is, you've never learned how to stand on your own. Because if you did, if you finally stopped accepting anything just to avoid being alone, you'd have to admit that for years, you've been selling off your self-respect at a discount. And that's what scares you more than anything. Realizing that the first person who betrayed you was you, not them, not the bad world. It's you who didn't have the strength to say, I deserve more. It's you who chose a little superficial approval over the discomfort of a silence where maybe you would have finally learned to rely on yourself. It's easier to blame other people. It's more comfortable to say they're toxic. But the truth is, people only do what you allow. And if you put your worth in the bargain bin, you can't complain when people show up ready to pay the minimum and expect everything. Until you learn to decide who you are and what you deserve, until you decide that your energy is valuable and not available to just anyone, you will keep spending your life collecting crumbs. So, if you've seen yourself in any of these signs, this is your wake-up call. You can't keep pretending it's just how friendships are, or that it will magically fix itself if you're patient enough. It won't. The only way this changes is if you stop lying to yourself about what you're tolerating and why you've been tolerating it. Not everyone deserves access to you just because you have history. At some point, you have to decide that you respect yourself more than you fear being alone. So, in my opinion, the first step you should do is to get brutally honest. Stop sugarcoating it. Stop making excuses like they mean well or I'm overreacting. That's not normal. Okay? You can't heal what you keep refusing to name. Be willing to say it plainly. This person treats me like an afterthought. This dynamic is exhausting. This is not love or respect. Until you face it without filters, you will keep giving them chances they didn't earn. The second thing is to stop chasing. You need to understand this. You are not obligated to prove you're worthy of basic respect. If you're the one always initiating, always apologizing, always making space, you're not in a friendship, you're in a transaction. Next is to set clear boundaries. Start saying, I'm not available for this conversation right now. I'm going to step back. This doesn't work for me anymore. You don't owe them a 10-paragraph explanation. People who genuinely care will respect your boundary even if they don't like it. People who only cared about what you gave them will throw a tantrum. Let them. That reaction is proof you made the right choice. And last thing is surround yourself with different people. You cannot heal in the same environment that keeps wounding you. You can't build self-respect while you're constantly exposed to people who see you as disposable. Start investing your energy in relationships where you don't have to shrink, edit yourself, or pretend you don't care about things that matter to you. Find people who celebrate your growth instead of feeling threatened by it. People who can clap when you win and hold space when you lose. The more you spend time with those kinds of people, the more obvious it becomes how low your old standards actually were. You deserve more. You don't have to settle for half-assed attention and inconsistent loyalty just because you're scared of the quiet that comes after you let go. You don't have to make yourself smaller to be tolerated by people who have no idea how to value you. You don't have to keep playing the role of the rescuer, the peacekeeper, or the convenient emotional dumping ground just to feel needed. The minute you decide to stop explaining and start expecting, everything changes. Sometimes the bravest, most self-loving thing you can do is close the door calmly and permanently and mean it. Nothing is more liberating than finally walking away from people who only ever wanted a version of you they could use. That freedom is worth everything you will have to face to get there. So this leads us to the end of this video. I hope it was helpful, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.